Thank you for tuning in to the Northeast region's headquarters for hunting-related stories and tactics, sourced from DIY hunters and industry insiders. This is Hunting the Empire. Now here's your host, Joe Mainville.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining another episode of the Hunting the Empire podcast. We're going to jump right into the show today because I'm joined by Reuben Dourte, common ground bow hunter from Pennsylvania, and we're talking season update from this past hunting season and tree stand modifications. Here we go. It was a weird season for me this year because almost every weekend was a south wind, and that's not a wind that I'm typically used to hunting. That
I feel your pain.
it was so goofy this year. And actually, I went to a lot of spots that I've gone to in the past. This is my fourth season hunting this, one particular chunk of public ground. And I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's 14,000 acres of pretty much continuous timber, and there's a lot going on there. And it was interesting this year that I've got like go-to spots at different points of the season that I go to based on, whether I should be seeing, rubs starting to pop up here because I do every year and yada, yada, yada. Didn't see any of that this year. All the
Really?
areas that I've historically always seen sign pop up was was dead this year. Didn't
Really?
see a thing. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought, and I wondered if it was the wind because generally up there I see, a west to maybe a
Yeah.
southwest is what I typically get, which I've got a ton of spots for. But a south wind every time I went out, or just about, really played havoc on it. And I'm wondering if that changed some of the some of the behaviors of the deer out there too, and they just opened up new areas or different areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely could have. I feel your pain on that. I've found myself getting like frustrated halfway through the season and kind of having to step back and I don't know what the word is for it, but just kind of keeping everything in perspective, I guess is the best way to put it. Just be happy for the opportunities that I got. But I was like, looking at Weather Underground, and it was every single time that I had an opportunity to hunt, I had terrible winds for the way that the terrain lays for the spots that I had.
Yep.
And then it never seemed to fail that the one or two good north or northwest winds that would be coming through on a front, I couldn't get out of work, or it wasn't on a weekend or what have you. And I was just getting so fed up about halfway through archery season. And I was just down in the dumps about it. But then you kind of adapt. And then I decided that next year I need to have, more spots prepared and scouted for those oddball wins. Not necessarily that south or southwest is oddball. I mean, we get plenty of them, but towards the end of October, it seems to be shifting a little bit more, and the percentages go up for the northwest. And a couple of my spots, I need almost a due north wind to be able to kind of play that just off wind. With some of the bedding areas and stuff. I'm trying to hunt on some evening sits, and I don't know that we got a single one of them all fall.
Yeah.
So it put a little bit of a kink in the game plan, but all in all, it was a good season, and I saw deer and had, more encounters probably than I've had in really any year in the recent couple years. So, I was thankful for that. It just didn't quite come together. I had my target buck at 55 yards on one of the highest wind days, and that's just, I'm not comfortable shooting that far, especially not in 25-mile-an-hour wind. So,
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. You got some dough in the freezer, right? Though.
yeah, we did all right. We put some, between me and my dad and my wife, we put some dough in the freezer, and my wife shot her first buck in New York, and I got that all on film. So that was pretty cool. She actually a doe and a buck came in together about mid-morning, and she shot the buck, and the doe kind of still just stood there and wasn't sure where the shot come from. So she racked another one and put the doe down too. So that was kind of a cool experience for her.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exciting there. That was meant to be.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun, and to get it on film and everything, I wish I had my first deer on film.
Yeah.
So,
I
so
wasn't even thinking about filming back then.
yeah, no, me neither. But yeah, he got a good buck in PA, probably, if not his best, very, very close to his best buck in PA. It's a good 9 point, about a
Yeah.
18 and a half inch spread. So something like that. Maybe 18 inside. I can't remember, but a good buck, good representative buck for the area that we hunt, probably 3-year-old.
Yeah, that was a beautiful deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can't complain anyway. But tell me about, you said you put something on Instagram about hitting a buck in archery or whatever. Maybe you're not ready to talk about it
Oh
yet.
man. I was just thinking, I was talking to a guy early about it today that it relives in my nightmares almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it was, this season was a success for me. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, I only harvested the one doe down in PA. The shot heard around the world, but
Mm-hmm.
um, it was a
Oh
good
yeah.
season.
uh, that was the shot heard around the world.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you ain't kidding. I'm not living that one down either. But it was a good season. I mean, it was my first season really kind of, I'll say using half beast tactics because I haven't
Mm-hmm.
yet been able to put the scouting tactics to use yet.
Yep.
Um, but that's a whole thing that I'll go into at some point on what I plan on doing for scouting this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just focusing on those kind of beast tactic areas, and I had a lot of really good encounters this year. Not only with doe, but some decent bucks too, and some small bucks, but just deer in general, which I'm always happy to see. And
Yeah.
so for that particular hunt was, I guess it was first week in November that I had gone down, and it was kind of semi-planned, semi on a whim that said, well, we had such a good season there in early October. Saw so many deer. I mean, more deer than I'm used to seeing per square mile in anywhere I hunt in New York. And I said,
Wow.
oh yeah, I mean, tons of deer. I bet you. I mean, many of them being at night. Just as it was getting dark on my way back to camp. Uh, I'd see probably 15 or 20 deer crossing the road from side to side each night. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, that's when I'm like, man, I think I want to get back down there and try. I figured it was probably not going to be rut at that point, but hopefully a little bit of chasing starting to go on.
Right.
And
This was like late October.
it was, I want to say November 3rd or 4th, I think I went down.
Okay. Yeah. So about starting up.
Yeah, I think it was. That's what I was kind of anticipating is that I wasn't seeing much going on in New York. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, let's try this PA stuff because obviously in that area that we went down there, I already saw more deer. So I was hoping that there'd be, and I had some nice bucks between all of us on the map reading challenge crew that we saw down there during the early season hunt. So I was excited about it. So I went down. My original plan was I was going to go down on that Thursday night, which I believe was maybe the third, if memory serves me. And then I was going to hunt um, Friday morning, Friday night, Saturday night, and then drive home Saturday night. It's about a 5.5 hour drive from home to where we were down in central PA. And I got out of work a hair early on that Thursday and I stopped for gas and looked at my clock and I'm like, if I don't stop at all, I can get down there with about an hour to spare. And that I'd try to get down there, maybe I can get a hunt in. And so I got down there, and as I'm crawling up the switchbacks to get up this hill, um, I got my Onyx open, and I'm like, okay, it's a south wind, so I'm looking for the food plots are really nice there. Like the spots that I hunt in New York, it's all just like dingleweeds. It's
Hmm.
junk. The deer don't even use them after any season starts, except to travel through. But down there on this particular piece in PA, it's like clover grass. Like it's manicured. It's a beautiful field, all over
That's
the
like
place.
that's like stuff the game commission put in then.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
and I think maybe they'll let farmers take some cuttings off it or something, but it's all seeded down. I mean, beautifully manicured. So I'm like, on this one particular road that cuts through the center of this state land, where I saw a lot of the deer crossing back and forth. I said, I'm gonna try to find a food plot on there, and I'm gonna try to get it on this south side of the road. So then that way I can just walk straight in, and my scent is just gonna funnel behind me, and I'm not gonna cross into anything. So I said, I'm not even gonna take out my stand. I've never been in this area. I'm just going to go try to hunker down on the ground somewhere and make the best of it.
Hmm.
So I get there, pull up, and there's a gate that goes over the field because there's out in some of these fields I think they're like natural gas wells, um, and I think they drive out there and check them or something like that. But the gate was down, and I saw tire tracks, and I got back in the truck. I'm like, I'm going to try to find a different spot to hunt because this is probably played out. And I think it was turkey season at that time too. It just opened down there.
Hmm.
So I got back on my Onyx, and that was actually the only food plot on that road that's on the south side. And I said, to heck with it. I'm just going to hunt it anyway. I'm not really expecting anything to come out. So, whatever. My thought is that at that point in the season, if the does are coming out to feed, which I saw a lot of does coming out into those food plots just before dark to feed on that grass, that maybe at least something I considered to be a shooter would come along behind it,
Hmm.
and maybe I'd fill a tag on my first night and just go home. And
Right.
so I get out there and I get set up, and there's a lot of good sign around the field. I was surprised. Get set up out there, and probably 15, maybe 20 minutes later, I hear some rustling in the laurel next to me, and out pops this doe. And just behind her was a little 6 or 7 point. So you know, get out into the field. I range them, and they're about 58 yards from me, and that was beyond my comfort zone at that point. So I just watched them mill around the field a little bit, and I pulled up my binos just to count points on them and watch and just kind of relax a few. It was just kind of nice watching them and debating, is this a deer that I want to take on the first night that I'm here? Because he was legal, it's good to go.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, I got my binos up, and I see the doe's head whip back to where she came out of. And with my binos up still, I just kind of peek out of the corner of my eye, and here's this like, I mean, it's like a 10 point. I'm bad at judging on the hoof, but I'd say maybe 140 class.
Ooh.
I mean, beautiful, absolutely beautiful buck. The rack is just like uh, a light tan to white. I mean, just it looked like a calendar with him just standing there. He's postured, staring at this little buck and doe out in the field. I mean, just beautiful. And I'm downwind from all of them. They got no clue I'm there as I'm sitting on the ground.
Hmm.
And so he comes out in the field. And there was no doubt in my mind. I didn't need to pull the binos on him. He was a shooter. That's for dang sure. And
Yeah, that's getting near a once in a lifetime Pennsylvania deer right there.
oh, he was. I mean, that's any state I hunt, I would have taken him
Yeah.
without a doubt. He's beautiful, beautiful buck. And but he's kind of moving around in the field too far for me. Well, he kind of filters off to the left side of the field in front of me behind some brush, and all I can see is his rack kind of flashing between the brush. And he kind of tickles the tines a little bit with that smaller 6 point, just for a half a second. I hear him kind of rub them together, and then that 6 point comes back through the center of the field. But I can tell he's a heck of a lot closer now. So I'm like, I get bow ready because I'm like, I'm thinking this, this better buck's going to be coming back behind him, and sure enough, he did. And I,
That 6 point is really quite a gutsy deer.
you ain't kidding.
Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, it was wild. And it's interesting as this whole thing unfolds. Uh, it sounds like you sat there and watch them for like a half an hour because you're just soaking up every single detail of what's going on.
Hmm.
In all actuality, it was probably less than 10 minutes that the whole thing went down. But it
Yeah, that's
it
an eternity to have
it
a
sure felt
140 in
like
front
it.
of you. Yeah, yeah.
So I got my rangefinder up, and he's at about 40 yards, and about 42 yards. He's bouncing back and forth, and I said,
So are you like kneeling on the ground at this point in time?
no, at this point, I stood up.
Oh, so you're standing now.
So
Okay.
I was sitting down, but I'm like, okay, as that smaller 6 point came out in front of me, I said, I'm gonna slowly get up because they don't know I'm here, and I'm, my Sitka gear. You gotta love that elevated too for being on the ground, um,
Hmm.
blending right into that stuff. I mean, it couldn't have been any better there. So I hunted with a single pin slider this year. First time I did, and I don't think I'll ever go back to a multi-pin, but
Really?
oh, I loved it. It's fantastic. So I range them at about 42, move my slider down to 40 because I had it set on 30, and I said I'm going to aim just a hair high to make up for that little bit, but I know it's not going to make much of a difference at that point. And I said, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna grunt him because I want him to stop naturally because I don't want him to string jump at 40 something yards.
Hmm.
So he did. He basically walked in. I mean, he read the script for me. He gave me everything he possibly could have. He steps into one of the few openings that I have in front of me. I settle on him, let it go, and as soon as I let it go, he kind of lurched back like he heard something and he was getting ready to spring out, and he lurched back, and I ended up catching him in the shoulder.
Oh man.
And it looked like a good shot. I mean, it looked like a really good shot. I mean, I've replayed it like every day since then, and I don't think I would have changed anything. Obviously, maybe holding a little further back, knowing how he was going to react to it, but I didn't anticipate him to move at all.
Hmm.
And
Right.
when he lurched back, I got him in the shoulder, and he took 3 bounds out of the field, kind of cut a little bit of a right, and I heard him go down the hill a little bit, and it sounded like a crash. So I thought, game over. Um, this is it. I got a wall hanger. I'm getting ready to
Right.
speed dial the taxidermist. And
Right.
so I go out to the field because it's still daylight. I mean, there's probably another 20 minutes before dark. I go out to the field, and I immediately start getting like a sinking feeling because I'm not seeing even a drop of blood, not seeing a thing. And I can't find the arrow, but I did watch the arrow. I watched him, go off with it. He was carrying the arrow. And so I said, I don't want to push him or anything. I'm just going to back out, um, call the guys because they're out hunting, and see what they're up to and see if they want to come give me a hand and recover this thing. So I give it about an hour and go back and ended up finding the arrow in the weeds. The broadhead had broken off from the insert, and it actually bent the insert, which
Mm.
at about a 45-degree angle. And he kept the broadhead in him when he ran off, but dropped the arrow. And there was only a little bit of blood at first, and then it really picked up. Like I was feeling really optimistic because you could tell like it was definitely only a single lung hit. There was a couple of spots where you could tell that the buck had kind of cleared his lungs and coughed up a little bit of blood and then kept moving. And we searched for probably about 3 hours that night. Um, Started off really good blood and then just dried up to almost nothing. And it got to be about 10 o'clock that night. on that Thursday night, and we decided to call it. Everybody was getting a little hangry and grumpy, and said, "Well, I'm just gonna come back in the morning and go to water and grid search and see what I can find." And went to Last Blood the next morning, and that was the last blood that I found. And I searched another 4 hours and covered a lot of ground and never found any other sign of him.
Man, that stinks. That's
Yeah.
so tough. I was just telling my sister-in-law's boyfriend he wants to get into hunting, and I was telling him about, missing deer, or, one that got away or whatever. You see one and it almost comes together, and I was like, it hangs with you for so long.
Yeah.
It's like it almost hangs with you until you shoot the next one. Like you got to get it, you got to get the monkey off your back. Like you could carry it like the whole year till you, or 2 years until you get a chance at another one. And then even then, sometimes you look back and think about all the what ifs.
Yep.
It's tough. It's like one of the lows of hunting, but it happens.
Yeah, and I mean, it was actually the first deer that I've ever not recovered, so I'm thankful for that. But if there was ever a deer that I wanted to recover, he was
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so I mean, I really hope he survived it. We started calling him Chuck Norris because
Yeah.
he was just tough as nails to survive that. And uh, I don't know. That's why I'm kind of the area that we ended up hunting them in. We get down behind that field, and there was so much buck sign. Uh,
Yeah.
it was just ridiculous. It was so tore up through there, and it was
Might be coming out of a bedding area there relating to that food source with the doe movement on that food source. That might be a spot to mark on your map.
well.
Scout it in late season.
Yeah, I definitely marked it because it was interesting. I've never seen this before, but as I was kind of combing that hillside looking for the deer, I came across a lot of bedding, but all of the bedding, it was really interesting. It was almost like the beds were built up and they were like a sandbox.
Mm.
Because I'm like, what is this? So, and I reached down into the bed and it was like sand, like play sand. So I don't know. I
Oh,
know,
really?
yeah, it was so odd. I've got some pictures of it. I'll have to post them or some at some point. But
Yeah.
all the beds that I found on that hill looked like, I don't know, maybe they had taken over, like the bucks had flattened out some ant hills or something like that. And
Mm.
I don't know, it was
Yeah, I've
they were
never
soft
seen
beds.
anything like that. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I'm taking like 0.5% credit for that hunt because I was texting you like that. I think it was that week before that, and I was like, man, you gotta get on the ground. I was like,
I
it's
know it.
like an adrenaline rush like I haven't had, like even just having does come in and stuff, because I was doing a bunch of still hunting this year because I didn't, like I said, I didn't have stands necessarily
Hmm.
as many as what I needed. So I was like, I'm just gonna kind of walk around with my stand on my back, and if I see get into sign, I'll post up. If not, I'm just going to move real slow. And I mean, I was moving slow through some areas, and I came up on a couple different times, came up on bedded deer and a little buck, and 30 yards away from him, like walking in, I started seeing more sign, and then I saw really fresh droppings, and I just slowed down real slow, and there he was, just bedded on this little bench right on the military crest of the hill, kind of looking down over. And then the wind actually shifted and started coming up the hill, and I watched that deer. As soon as I felt the wind, it was, how do I want to describe it? The wind was kind of coming across wind, and he was looking with his back to the wind, looking down the hill, and the wind kind of did a 180 and started coming up the hill. And I watched that deer get up, stretch his legs, turn around, and lay back down with the wind to his back. And he actually was more or less looking uphill, which is kind of not necessarily how you would typically think of him, like visually to bed, looking uphill, but he wanted that wind to his back. And to see a wind shift and stuff was just, you don't always see that kind of stuff when you're stand hunting. You kind of got to get into their space. And I was like texting you, I was like, man, you just got to you got to try it. It's freaking awesome. So,
No,
and you
that's
did.
no,
And
I
you wouldn't
did.
have had time to set up a stand before that doe and that 6 point were coming in on you either, you know?
Well, there was no trees in there even to set
Yeah.
one up. I mean, it was um, I played it about as good as I could, and it worked
Yep.
out. And in the end, it it was still a great encounter. I mean, it's
Still a success.
yep. This whole season was for me. I mean, it was I drew back a few times and got a little meat in the freezer, and
Hmm.
more importantly, I learned a ton.
And just, adapting to the circumstances. Like, you don't have a tree, fine, I'll sit on the ground. If this
Yep.
is the spot that I need to be in, this is the spot. So,
Yeah. Well, I've always kind of I took a different turn this year. Is that in years past, I find myself as I go further and further in the season doing more guessing instead of like using like information to put myself in the right spots. Like instead of where do I know the deer are going to be at this point, it was always I'm going to go here and hope I see something. And
hmm
that was what I've wanted to change more than anything else. And then this year, um, just more logic and kind of talking with all you guys and doing a whole bunch of research online and just really digging in, and found a ton of great sign and had some good encounters, and I only expect it to get better from here on out.
yeah, definitely. It's a different kind of hunting, and it's, I guess, higher risk, higher reward
Hmm.
type of stuff, I guess, to some extent, um, because you're probably running the risk of quote unquote messing up areas, and so you don't have like those repeat hunts. But I think that that's overrated anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of a misnomer anyway. But the one of the biggest things that I would tell guys, and this is just coming how I feel, you go in the late season and you kind of develop like all these ideas of how you're going to hunt this area based on the previous year's sign and everything, and you have all of this set up, like this is how this is going to work going into the season, and then something changes, whether it's a food source not being what you thought that it was going to be, or like some areas, I guess, across the Midwest had crazy acorn drops this year, and so that really affected deer
Hmm.
movement on those oak flats and whatnot, and so throws a kink into it. And then even if you're prepared, the thing that you have to I think guard against is you got to keep yourself from like second guessing what you saw and over evaluating. And obviously you want to adapt and change with where the deer are. I'm not saying that you get stuck in a rut or anything like that, but what I wind up doing is I know what I've seen with my scouting and everything, but then just developing that confidence, there's no substitute for confidence. And,
Hmm.
some of the guys that have been doing it for a long time, like a Dan Infalt, if you will, he's so confident in what he's doing. I don't think that he has the same kind of self doubt that like maybe you or I have going into it with those new tactics. And so there's times when I'm dead set, like I should be here, and then I start thinking about it too much and I move over, and then what winds up happening is I see deer moving where I thought that I wanted to be to begin with. And that happened to me a couple times this year. If I would have just gone to the first tree that I thought I needed to be at instead of over evaluating the situation once I got into that like bedding area, I probably would have had a crack at more deer. But I thought I needed to tweak it or change this little thing once I got in there, and it wasn't necessarily going with my gut, it was going with my brain overthinking things, I guess, if that makes sense at all.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's
I've
a struggle.
yeah, the struggle is real.
Yeah.
My goal, and this is something I've already been putting the bug in my wife's ear about every chance that I can, is that historically I've never done a lot of scouting. It just I'm I never find the time or don't prioritize it, so I don't do it. And out of all the people that I talk to, the common denominator is the amount of scouting that they do.
Yeah.
And those are the guys that are having, and gals that are having success. And so I've set a goal for myself that at least 1 day a month, starting now, because I've already been out scouting while I was gun hunting. And
Hmm.
I'm going to at least 1 day a month between now and October. I'm going to just dedicate scouting. And and I don't, it's not going to add up to be a ton of hours, but it will still be more scouting hours than I've ever scouted before. Um,
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's still a good start, and even just prioritizing just 1 day a month, and I'm hoping I can try to get in some extras. And once we get into shed season, get the family out there, and
Hmm.
even get in some extra time.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
um,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I wanted to touch base here. When I first got into bow hunting, I hunted from the ground for about 2 seasons, and they were two not so great seasons. I invested in a lone wolf hang on, or a climber stand, which I've used for a number of years now and absolutely loved it. This year, I am the proud owner of a set of lone wolf sticks and a hang on stand.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've used sticks and hang-ons on private land as like a permanent fixture, but
Hmm.
I've never used them in a run and gun situation. So I'm excited for a new challenge this year because I think I'm
Did
finally.
you get the Alpha or the Assault?
I originally was going to get the assault, but being a fat guy, I decided to get the alpha, and I
Yeah.
don't mind the little extra weight for a bigger platform.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still not, I mean, it's still not heavy, but
No, I mean it's
yeah.
basically the same platform as my. I've got a lone wolf sit and climb,
Hmm.
so it's
Right.
basically the same platform. But and I enjoy that platform. It's been a great stand. So
Yeah, I think you might gain like, I don't know, I don't quote me on this. You might gain like 2 inches out front and then it doesn't taper on the side. So it's
yeah,
maybe a shade easier to get into off the sticks.
yep,
When I say the sides, I mean back towards like the seat post.
yeah,
The Assault kind of has a triangular shape to it that eliminates probably whatever the difference is, 3 pounds on it.
yeah. And so that's why I didn't think the weight thing was going to be much of a difference compared to my sit and climb, because I mean that's manageable at this point. I figure maybe I'm going to be adding a
What are you
couple of
at on that?
pounds.
Like 17 pounds or something like that on the sit and climb?
Yeah, I think it's 17 or 18, and
Yeah.
I think there's counting the sticks is at about 10 pounds for the four,
Right.
and I think the stand is like 14. So, or yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
about.
you'll be
So,
heavier. What you're gaining is versatility.
yep, yeah, I'm tired of hunting for a tree because
Right.
I find a lot of trees I'd love to climb with my. I love my sit and climb. I sit in that thing all day.
Right.
Um, but it's, obviously it's a climber, so you're limited on what trees you can use. So I'm excited to add something new to my arsenal, and I'm going to be spending this off season um, modifying my stand. So I wanted to have you on to talk about modifications that you've made that myself and other people can think about in this off season.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds like a good topic.
All right, man. So what have you done on your what's the first thing you do to yours when you pick up a new stand?
The very first thing that I usually do is I buy that it's the brand that I use is like Jayco Mace. It's cloth hockey tape, I guess, 1 inch by I think the rolls are like 1 inch by 10 yards. I just get it in black. I think maybe you can spend more and get like a camo color or green or something, but the black is the cheapest. I don't think the deer care much. But I wrap the Lone Wolf is really easy to wrap because of the cast platform, but you can do it on like a tubular aluminum stand, like a Muddy or um, one of my other mobile sets is I got it before they bought Muddy. It was a big game platinum series. I want to say it was a Bravada or something. And basically, the Muddy Vantage now is the same stand, and it's got the tubing is thinner tubing than your kind of stereotypical hang on stand with like the big square tubing. So that wraps pretty easy too, but the lone wolves are super simple to wrap with that hockey tape. And I just do a continuous wrap from the back of the stand the whole way around the outside edge. And then I wrap the seat post, and I even wrap the like the cables coming off of the seat post to the platform. I wrap them too, so if my boots get against them, it's not giving me that squeak.
Okay.
And that does a lot. And then I haven't done it with the hang on with the assault, because
Mhm.
it's small enough that it almost doesn't take up any more profile than me walking through the brush. It's like almost as narrow as my body, and it doesn't really stick up above my shoulders very much. But on my climber, which is an old Summit climber, that I've just kind of modified enough to get by with it. I don't love it. But I did on that, I took rope and I wrapped rope around basically halfway up around the outside edge of the platform. And that actually deadens sound even more so than the tape, just that rope wrap. And you can either just wrap it and keep it real tight, or you can do like a cobra knot. You can find plenty of videos online on how to do cobra knots with like paracord, but that is super time consuming to go around the whole thing with a cobra knot. So I just
Yeah.
opted to just wrap it, and that thing is so dead. If it That's got that tubular aluminum, and
Hmm.
if you don't do anything to it, it's almost like a tuning fork if metal hits it. But with that wrap, it absorbs so much of the vibration, and then if anything hits the rope, if you hit a place that isn't wrapped, it absorbs that vibration. But anywhere, if you hit it where the rope is with any metal or anything, it's just a thud. It's not, it doesn't sound like metal on metal at all. And then the other nice thing about it is it sort of gives you a different feel when you're in the stand. If you're, looking at a deer and you need to be moving around and your foot gets on that, that you're at the edge of your stand. That's the other thing that I really like about that rope wrap. It's kind of a little safety thing too.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that before. And that's definitely, I was looking at rope over the weekend trying to see if that's something I wanted to end up doing or not. But for that,
That does add a little bit of weight. I mean, until you get the
yeah,
rope around the whole thing. So you're probably, I don't know, might add a half a pound of weight or something, depending on what size diameter of rope that you use and how much of the stand you're going to do.
yeah, I thought about paracord, but I figured that's probably not even big enough to make much of a difference.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
some guys use that for it. You're going to wind up wrapping it a lot.
a lot.
I would quicker use like a go on like REI or something like that, or maybe like backcountry gear and get like an accessory cordage.
Oh
They have
yeah,
all different millimeters of accessory cordage. You could use that. I would probably do that. You'll probably get by a lot quicker that way.
yeah. How do you find that that tape holds up for you from season to season?
So far, I've had really good luck with it. Like I've used the same tape wrap over, oh, I guess 2 years with that lone wolf and with that big game. That's going on 3 seasons on the same tape,
Hmm.
and I haven't had any issues with it. Now I have a Summit hang on that I got years ago that utilized that talon bracket system, because I thought that I was just going to put a bunch of talon brackets up on public. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like a quick connect kind of thing.
Yeah,
And I was going to put a bunch of them up on public and then just have one stand, and that was going to be how I was going to hang stuff, quick, and basically do a hang and hunt that way. And I don't use it like that anymore, so I just have it hanging in a tree, and I had wrapped that, and leaving it out, it's not going to fare well if you're leaving it out in the elements.
yeah.
Um, you know, Other guys will use the stealth strips. They're a
Hmm.
lot of the hunting beast guys are big on the stealth strips, and like he'll sell like a stick package, I think, for them to do all your sticks, and a stand package to do all the outside edge of your stand and everything. Um, I think I think that probably works maybe even better than the tape. the tape's just so cheap.
Yeah.
And I can get the tape around every little corner that I want to get it around. It's not kind of predetermined or anything where I need to put it. So that's what I like so much about that. Because where the seat post comes down against the platform, I wrap that, like, around the wolf head, where the bow hanger is and
Yep.
everything. I have that completely wrapped. So if I do use that put my bow cam in there, it's not against the metal, and it's just nice. The versatility of it is nice. So that's the first thing that I usually do.
You use that bow hanger, that the one built into the stand?
I did use it a couple times this year. One reason was because some of the public land sits that I was sitting, I didn't want to hold my bow the whole time, and
Yeah.
I didn't have like a public land legal hook, because you
Yep.
can't screw in PA. I do not find that I care for it because I feel like I'm constantly watching my bow to make sure that it's not falling out of there.
That's what I was worried about. I
It
haven't.
feels so precarious. And then I also feel like if you were to bump your bow, you could be torquing your cam because you got so much leverage on the bow and it's just sitting there by your cam,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't love that, but I did use it a couple times. But yeah, I mostly have that area taped up because the seat and the seat post go down against right around that area.
Yeah. Yeah, for my sit and climb, I ended up buying one of those, I think Third Hand Archery makes it, and
Yeah,
it's a bow
right.
hold, and I don't at first, I was really uneasy about the bow coming out of that, um,
Hmm.
but I don't know, I've used it for a couple seasons now and I guess grown accustomed to it and have really enjoyed it. I know I've talked to a couple of guys who have climbers that put those on and say that they trust them so much that they'll climb with their bow mounted in that third hand thing. And I'm like,
Oh, really? Wow.
yeah, I'm like, nah, not me.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I
Yeah,
don't know if I just want that like extra whatever, kind of like clanking around or whatever. I
yeah.
don't know. I have never used it, so I shouldn't say. But yeah, the Garrett Prawl that does the DIY sportsman stuff, he
Hmm.
had fabbed up kind of a, I think it was like a paracord attachment, public land legal bow hook that was out of like a piece of like angle aluminum or something with a sort of a bolt bracket coming off of it. It's hard to describe, but basically it used a rope system and just you get the rope tied onto it real tight, and then you would just cam it over, almost like same concept of those Wild Edge step ladder sticks, how they cam over with that rope system.
Oh
It
yeah.
was basically the same thing, but for a little bow holder that was like the size of your palm, and then he just hung his bow on the bolt
Oh,
that was sticking
interesting.
out from it, and that was totally public land legal. I thought about maybe making one of those because they looked light and didn't take up a lot of room in the pack, but yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't. I've been trying to figure out what I want to do on this new stand and kind of to what extent I want to go. I know that one problem I'm going to have is uh, a couple of years ago when I finally got real serious back into filming my hunts with my sit and climb. I was tired of just hauling in extra gear for my camera arm.
Yeah.
So I ended up mounting my camera arm directly to my armrest on the sit and climb,
Oh, yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
worked out so well. And but I don't have that option with.
Yeah, you won't be able to do that.
So now I've got to try to figure out what I'm going to do. I guess I'm going to have to go back to the traditional camera arm to get the job done. But and that's going to be. I hate I hate gear. I just want to go with
Yeah.
as little as possible.
A couple times this year, I just left the camera at home. I was so sick of it.
I did too.
Um, I was like, this is sapping some of the enjoyment out of the hunt for me. And lo and behold, the times that I did that were the times that I had the closest encounters with nice deer that I could have probably at least gotten nice footage of them.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes.
You know
That would have
the
just been a consolation prize anyway. I probably wouldn't have seen him if I would have had my camera along.
say,
But it,
can you take a guess the first time I didn't take my camera with me this
yeah,
year? Because was when that 140 class 10 point came
yeah,
out.
yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
Yeah, frustrating.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so
The other thing that you want to do, sorry to cut you off
no,
there,
you're
but
good, man.
the other thing that you want to do is get go to like the local hardware store or bike shop or whatever and get some old bike inner tubes.
Oh yeah, okay.
And for that cam buckle strap that the Lone Wolf comes with that goes around the Versa button,
Yep.
just take like a 6-inch piece or whatever of that and slide it over that cam buckle and basically just take a knife and cut out so that you can still work the buckle and you still have the hole where the strap is coming out the back of the buckle. It's a little hard to describe over the phone here, but
Yeah.
so you're threading it's basically you're just cutting the tube out so that all of the strap can still go through it, but all of the metal part of the buckle is covered in the rubber inner tube, and that works amazing. Like when you're trying to put your stand around the tree and you're trying to throw that buckle around or throw the tail around and the buckle's hanging there, knocking against the seat post, there's just no noise with it.
Hmm. The other, and I forget, maybe it was even Garrett again, DIY sportsman that I saw. I'm pretty sure it was him that he had like a rope mod that basically eliminated that cam buckle going around the Versa button. That it was just
Yeah.
like that climbing rope that I see people use for the aiders.
Yeah, that was for his sticks though. I
Oh
tried
yeah,
that with the stand, and it's really hard because if you think about it, it's hard to get it tight enough because first of all, you have more movement with those ropes, typically speaking,
yeah,
with the sticks. They sag just a touch more than what that strap is going to, but everything is going straight down the tree. So basically when you step on it stretches the rope and takes the play out of it. You're When you're on the stand, you're out in the front of the platform, you actually have a leveraging effect.
mm,
And so any of the stretch, even in a static rope or like an accessory cordage that isn't supposed to be dynamic, and probably has enough, like whatever it is, kilo, what is kilonewtons or something of
yeah,
the tensile strength,
yep,
it might be rated to 4,000 pounds or whatever. Even that, I was not able to get that rope mod around the Versa button. I like tried it at like 2 foot off the ground.
hmm,
I couldn't get my stand to cam lock where the bat wing on
yeah,
it was staying against the trunk, and then the V bracket at the bottom. Um, you know, I don't know if you have watched any of Dan Infalt's videos where he cam locks the stand, but when he's up in it, he puts his knee on the seat and then takes his toe and actually lifts that platform. And so the stand will sink down just, an extra inch.
hmm,
And then when you put the platform down, it basically kind of creates like a camming effect with that platform on those straps. With that rope mod on the stand, it's almost impossible to get it cam locked on. Now, I'm not saying that you would fall with it, but I'd rather use it for sticks
yeah,
than something that I'm going to be standing in for, 4 hours, 6, 8 hours, for, a whole hunt.
yeah.
But yeah, the rope mod is pretty slick. But I personally use the muddy sticks. So
Okay.
they have those muddy pro sticks have the um it's almost like a boat cleat
Hmm,
system that they use with that rope coming around, and then it kind of the cleat sort of pinches the rope and rotates back on the rope and doesn't let the rope pull back through. So there's no buckle on my sticks to begin with. So that's kind of a nice system that way. But those are shorter sticks than your lone wolves are. So I use climbing aiders like you were talking about
okay.
on the bottom of them, and they work okay for me. But I don't know. I think you're maybe not quite like, I don't know what your step is.
I'm a short guy.
Yeah. So that's the toughest thing. Like I would never. My dad and I hunt some of the same stands. I would never throw up like a portable set and then like leave it in there because it was a good spot or whatever and have him go back and hunt it the next day or something like that if there was climbing aiders on the bottom of the steps, because it's all that I can do to basically, my step is maxed out till those aiders kind of sag and stretch, like when you put your foot in them. Like when
Yeah.
they're just relaxed and there's nothing in them, it I probably made them too big, because I didn't realize this was going to happen. But then when you put your foot in it and it stretches them out with the webbing, and kind of like tightens everything down, the steps distance that I made was almost like beyond my knee. And when you're
Oh,
with
wow.
hunting gear on, like, that's a bit of a step going up, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do it and I get higher that way by maxing it out, but um, I don't know. I don't know if it's, I'm debating what I want to do with that, because I don't think that it's the absolute most safe way to climb, but man, it reduces your weight on your pack. And I can get by with 3 of those muddy sticks,
Mm,
that are 2.5 pounds each, and get 20 foot up with a 2-step aider on each step.
yeah.
um, so
Mm,
7.5 pounds of sticks, so I mean, that's your 3 pounds or whatever,
yep.
um, extra, for your stand. If you put aiders on your sticks, you're back to almost like an assault weight then, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I mean, I don't hunt extremely high. Most of the time, I'm probably, I don't know, 15 to maybe 18 feet.
Hmm.
I don't usually get too much higher, but um, I don't know.
You could get by with just an aider on the bottom step if
Yeah, I
that's all
thought
the higher
about,
you're.
yeah, I thought about that too. Just doing something like that and just, I don't know, maybe try to get away with 3, but I don't know if I could. Maybe in some situations, but I don't know. I figured
Yeah,
that that'll just force me to take some stuff out of my pack. So, uh,
yeah, that's true. Be
like,
more of a minimalist. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like over the years I've really scaled down my pack anyway. But I mean, even on public land, I barely bring calls in most of the time because they don't respond to them, or
Yeah,
they run
I
away
don't.
from them. So,
Yeah, I don't even mess with them hardly ever. Maybe when we get into November.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that might just be to try and turn one out of desperation.
yep,
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff you start picking stuff out that you can
eliminate.
minimize.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other
So,
thing that you want to do, definitely, if you haven't already done it, is get yourself a lineman's belt.
yep, got one.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that is an
yeah.
absolute lifesaver. I could not hang a stand without that.
The other thing I picked up that I'm excited to try because I've seen the reviews look good, the videos look good, but I've never tried them. Is um, I picked up a set of the stick talons,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I'm excited to try those out because uh, I liked how the only thing I didn't like so far was that on the stand with the lone wolf stick quiver, it kind of goes down the center of the stand. And then
Yeah.
when I put the pack on, it's kind of off to one side, so it was kind of shifted weird,
Well,
but
and I think that stick quiver you got to take off before you hang the stand.
yeah, you do.
So with the stick talons, you can probably position the sticks. I think most guys figure out a way to position them so that the talons can stay on the stand.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm waiting for those to come in, and then I think the pack is supposed to pretty much lay right down between the sticks, um, so at least balance the load a little bit, so I'm excited to give those a shot.
If I was using 32-inch sticks, or like XOP sticks, I think they might be 34 inches. If I was using a longer stick that I needed to basically lay, say, parallel with the seat post when it's folded down,
Mhm.
I would probably go to the stick talons. But with the shorter muddy sticks, what I can actually do is I lay them basically on a 45-degree angle to the seat post, so not perpendicular, but
Mhm.
kind of 45 degrees. So it goes from the bottom corner of the stand up to the top corner of the stand, and they basically don't hang out past the platform at all.
Oh, okay.
And then I got a roll of bulk, like 1/4 inch. It might be bigger than 1/4 inch. It might be 5/8 inch, plastic, hooks. Are real slick. You just fit the bungee cord up through the hook and cinch it down, and you can adjust the lengths of them right in the field. They're not like pre-made or anything, so you can, if you need them tighter, you can shorten up the bungee cord and stretch it more to get it tighter. But
Hmm.
I just use those plastic hooks and go out to the outside edge of the cast platform that has the cloth tape wrap, and those plastic hooks on the cloth tape wrap make zero noise at all. And then I bungee my sticks down to that seat post at like a 45-degree angle, and they're real solid that way and don't hang out at all. But it, like in your situation, I completely understand why you'd be going to like the stick talon system. It makes sense.
Yeah, and so we'll see. I mean, I'm you know, in the videos that I watch and the reviews that I read, they look like they do a pretty good job of
Hmm.
keeping the sticks on. So I don't know, time will tell once they come in and I go to making them. But um,
Yeah, the other thing too is that's real sweet is you can, there's a company that makes them. I think they go down to the sportsman show. You've been down to like the Great Outdoors show or whatever in Harrisburg, right?
yep, and I'll be back down there this year.
Yeah, there's, he usually has his stand. I don't know if he's still there, but a couple of years ago he was, and he usually has his stands kind of near the lone wolf stand. Um, but he makes, I think it's called like a lock and walk or something like that. And I sort of looked at, this probably is, wouldn't make him happy, but I sort of looked at his design that he had using a molly belt, and how he was doing like the quick attach systems and stuff with
Oh
that.
yeah, yep.
And my dad had an old backpack frame for packing out elk when they went on an elk trip like back in 2000. And so I just pulled the belt, the waist belt, the hip belt off of that frame and threw it onto my lone wolf and made paracord loops. And then you can find it on Amazon, Grimlock, around the platform, that outside edge, paracord, make a loop of those Grimlock quick detach buckles too. And so I can throw that molly belt on or off real quick, and taking the weight off of your shoulders is everything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I would, before you did anything, I said that the first thing was I'd wrap everything. I might put the molly belt on before I did that. You know, if I had to actually choose between one or the other, because it's such a savings on how much you're sweating going in. I mean, I've gone in before where my shoulders are getting so sore from the backpack straps, cutting into them, I'm getting like a headache walking in with all that weight on. And now I can walk and I don't sweat. It's not keeping my clothes down against my back and my shoulders and everything. It's a lifesaver having that. I wouldn't go without it now.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. The first thing I did to my sit and climb was it came with the Lone Wolf padded straps, which are,
Hmm.
I mean, they're okay, but I ended up pulling those off and putting on. I just went down to like the sporting goods store and picked up a set of rifle slings and
Oh yeah.
put rifle slings on there. And I mean, they were like $10 a piece or something, but they helped a lot.
Right.
Super comfortable and pretty cheap.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I haven't gone to the Molly belt yet, but I've really been thinking about that.
You got to do it. You'll never regret it. I swear to you, it's a lifesaver, especially if you're going any distance back into your spots. It's just, I mean, if you have any troubles like I do, like trying to get back in and not sweating up, your base layers and everything and being cold for the rest of the hunt, you got to do it. It's amazing how much less perspiration you have to deal with.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out because a lot of I had a number of spots this year that were a mile and a half back in that I was walking really slow with like, early December with just a t-shirt on because I didn't want to get sweating so bad.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll have to check that out.
The other thing too is like whatever climbing harness you use. I personally use a rock climbing harness because I like to be able to take my upper layers on and off without having to deal with the shoulder straps of a harness, and I don't like to have to put my harness on at the bottom of my tree, like pack it in and then put it on, because it
Oh,
seems like buckles and everything are always clanking around on me.
yep.
So I just wear that rock climbing harness, and it's just, basically your waist, and you tie in the center on the center loop. And then my lineman's belt, I incorporated into that with 1 inch webbing. And you can find videos on
Hmm.
that too. I think DIY Sportsman has a video on how he made his out of military grade, like tubular webbing or something like that. Mine's a little bit different than that, but same concept. But anyhow, um, whichever system you use, if you take paracord and just make loops and like do like a double fireman's knot or something on the loop so it's not going to come out, you can actually put your lone wolf sticks on like one on either side of your either hip, and then even one behind you, and you can make it up the tree in one trip with your stand on your back and having your sticks hanging from those loops, and not have to go up and come back down for sticks and all
Hmm.
that stuff. And I do that, and then I have a paracord pull up rope attached to my bow and get up there, hang my stand, pull my bow up, and I'm hunting. So works pretty good that way to only make one trip.
So you shoulder your stand up the tree?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
because I've seen people either carry it, shoulder it up, or I've seen them have a haul line to it and then haul it up when they get the sticks hung, and I'm like, that doesn't seem all that convenient."
Well, I find I can't pull a stand up without it slapping against the tree and everything,
Yeah,
for one
true.
thing. And secondly, I just find it to be a lot easier once I'm up there. I'm already, like, let's say I've gone around branches because otherwise you'd use your climber if you're on a telephone pole
Oh,
tree,
yeah, yep.
so you're going around branches or whatever. I don't want to, the less amount of times that I have to work my lineman's belt around those branches or go up and down, that's when statistically you're most likely to fall. That and stepping into your stand.
Yep.
The less times that I have to go up and down and mess around with, my lineman's belt and all that stuff, I just think it's safer. So I take it up with me and put the buckle straps in my pocket and take it off my shoulders and throw a buckle strap on it, whip that around and get it hanging there. And then I have both my hands free because of my lineman's belt. And I just kind of, once I get the stand hanging on, I don't get it real tight. I just kind of get it there so that I can get the other strap positioned and everything. And then I get the stand like all leveled up and everything. Once I'm up there, and I'm never not connected to the tree in that whole process. So I think it's about as safe as you can get from that standpoint. So,
Hmm. I know a big, one of the first things I did when I got my sit and climb was I went through and, I used to be one that had all these, because in parts of New York, you can screw, like, bow holders and stuff into the trees, but I was trying to lighten my load and eliminate things and gear, and I started hanging a lot more stuff from my sit and climb, like
mm-hmm.
tying like paracord loops, and then using carabiners to hold my bag, or
Right.
I hunt with my quiver off, so I hang my quiver on a loop, and so you got anything like that that you recommend for hang-ons, or how do you go about doing it?
Well, some of the stuff that I hunt is private, so I'll just take those little bow hooks and screw one in. And typically my pack, I'll just throw around like the side of the tree so that I can still, if there's anything I need to get into, I can get into it. But before we did that, I got, well, I shouldn't say my dad, when we hunted mostly out of climbers for the summit climber that I had, I did have one of those sort of like prong, like almost looked like a two-prong fork bow holder that was attached right to the one brace on the climber for my bow. So I actually hung my bow off my climber with that. And then we also got made like two little pouches to hang down, so that back when I did take calls and all that crap into the woods with me, more than I do now, um, I had basically all of that, instead of it being in my pockets or a backpack. That was before I ever even hunted with a backpack. I would just have that all in pouches hanging off of the side of of the summit climber. So
Hmm.
that was, but that's been in several years since I've done anything like that. I try to have the least amount of stuff on the stand just because of the hanging process of it. I don't
Yeah.
want a bunch of stuff. It's a little bit different, I guess, than the climber because there's just a little bit probably more opportunities for stuff to hit and clank and make noise when you're pulling something off your back and hanging off the side of the tree to try and wrap your arms around the tree to get the straps on and whatnot. I'm sure you look, if somebody was just standing there watching you, I'm sure I probably look a little ridiculous hanging my stand, but it gets up there and I can do it. I feel confident that I can get my stand hung without any noise, that if I was 50 yards away from a bedded deer and it was thick enough that they couldn't see me, I don't think that they would hear me. I'm fairly confident on that.
What any other major or even minor, any other mods that you do that you found helpful?
Well, I know that we were going to stick on the stand stuff, but my camera arm,
Oh yeah.
um, I went and got a roll from Amazon. I got a roll of 8-inch adhesive backed neoprene, and that stuff I looked again for because I wanted to get more, and it looked like it was a little harder to find now, but that stuff is awesome um, for anywhere where you can justify a little bit of extra weight for what you're gaining on noise deadening.
Hmm.
It's crazy how much that does, and it's a lot nicer to grab a hold of my camera arm to hang it because it's a little bit more insulated than that cold metal would be.
Yeah.
But I just put that on it, cut it all around, like, you know, basically custom fit it to that, and then I just wrapped the whole thing with hockey tape to keep it on, and that thing is so dead quiet now. I don't have to worry about when I throw it onto the top of my sticks and bungee it down to my sticks. I don't have to worry about the metal on metal with it hit my sticks or my stand platform or anything. I mean, it's silent. So I really would recommend that. And I put those strips on. The Summit is a little bit different on the platform than like a Lone Wolf. It's got more flat rungs on the platform that you stand on, and I cut that neoprene basically along those rungs. And it's amazing how much that cuts down on the sound of your boots on the platform. It also gives you a better grip than the bare metal I've found.
Hmm.
And it just provides a little bit of insulation on your feet against that cold platform, like you were talking about hanging up in a tree stand in, December.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Seems silly that would help, but it really does. It just gets you off of that cold metal just a little bit.
Hmm.
So those are probably the two things that I didn't see that anywhere. I just was browsing on Amazon looking for stuff, and it popped up like customers also bought. I was like, what's this stuff?
Hmm.
It's like, hey, I can use that. So
Yeah, I
yeah, it
ended
works
up
well.
I've got like I don't know, when I first got back into filming and getting stuff for it, I ended up buying like the $25 muddy camera arm.
Yeah.
And I ended up because I was trying to get out of it as cheap as possible because I figured out, if I really wanted to film, that was like my trial. And if I wanted to film, then I'd upgrade some equipment in the next years after that. But that was probably, I don't know, 3 years ago. And I ended up finding it was it's like a duct tape, but it's made by like Gorilla, like the Gorilla
Yeah.
Glue thing, and it was in
Yep.
camo. And I ended up wrapping my muddy camera arm with that, and is thinking I was just going to end up junking that thing and buying a better camera arm at some point. But 3 years later, that Gorilla camo tape looks like the day I put it on,
Hmm.
surprisingly, and it deadened the noise in it quite a bit.
Is that so? Did you figure out a way to mod that muddy camera arm to your sit and climb seat? Is that what you used?
Yeah, so I still fashioned to it. So I've got the muddy camera arm that I mounted directly to my climbing or yeah, my sit and climb, and then I ended up pulling off the crappy friction head that was on it and putting
Yeah.
a Manfrotto head on it.
Hmm.
But I don't know. It's been a really good setup. So I almost don't want to go to a conventional camera arm when I have the hang on. But
Yeah, I need to do something about my camera arm, to be honest, because I should say my fluid head, because I did have a video head on it that was a Vanguard, and I liked it a lot. It was super smooth. But what would always wind up happening is, especially when I had a shotgun mic on the camera, if it was like a downward angle, like which it normally is, unless
hmm
you're in real steep terrain, um, the way that the friction on, like, if you will, like the up down pitch of the fluid head, when I would move that up and down, that threaded knob would work its way loose.
yeah,
And so I had a situation where I had it on the deer, but I had moved it a little bit and it had loosened just enough, and it was at a steep enough angle that the camera got front heavy.
yeah.
And as I was drawing back on the doe, the camera just dropped straight down, pointed at the ground. And so I was like, well, I can't be tightening that knob and getting it positioned. I don't have enough hands to do all that, and hold my bow. So I swapped it out for one of those, well, be like the muddy head like you're talking about, but it's also a Vanguard. It's a little bit nicer, but it has, you like twist the rod to tighten it
Oh, yep,
down. You,
yep,
you know what I'm talking about?
yep.
And I love that, but I put an extension on a threaded rod I got from the hardware store. I put an extension on it so I could be way far back with my Lank remote,
Oh yeah.
so that I wouldn't have to be up by the camera as much, so less movement. But the angle of that threaded rod gets into the last arm of the camera arm now. So I need to put an extension that basically makes the camera sit up off of the camera arm like 6 inches, so I have enough clearance for that threaded rod. So I don't know if anybody's following my ramblings there, but it's just too, it's always a challenge
Yep,
to get the right system down that's efficient enough and quick enough when you're trying to get the deer in frame and also be the shooter.
yep.
It is definitely a struggle, that is for sure.
Well, and that's one of the things that led me to, in my quest to kind of eliminate gear from my bag that, um, it was like the camera arm was one of the first things for me. It's like, okay, I want to film, but I'm tired of, strapping this thing to the tree and then extending it and yada yada yada. So I was like, what can I do here to make this more convenient? So that's why I ended up mounting it directly to my my sit and climb, the armrest rail. So then
Hmm.
that way it's already like it's on there. The only thing I have to do, and even my fluid head stays on it when I pack it
Right.
out. I'm just pulling out the camera and sticking it
Snap
on
it.
there, and that's it.
Yeah, that's
You know,
nice.
it's and that's why it's almost like, oh, going to a
You're
hang on.
probably
I'm
gonna
like,
miss, yeah, you're gonna miss that a lot.
yeah, that's been super handy, and that I tell you, I got that Manfrotto fluid head on Amazon. It was like a deal of the day thing. It was like,
Hmm.
I don't know, $90 or something,
Yeah.
and that is a sweet head compared to
Yeah.
that muddy head that I was using.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They just throw cheapo,
Yeah.
all plastic, whatever, on those things when they sell them so that they can hit a price point. Yeah, you almost got to. You don't have any kind of, good smooth movement if you're trying to pan or something like that. It gets all choppy and binds up
Oh,
on
yeah.
some of those cheaper heads for sure. Yeah,
Well,
so it's almost a necessity to swap it out.
yeah, and even on that camera arm, I went to Lowe's and picked up a bunch of the nylon washers
Yeah.
and went through and coated all the nylon washers in bowstring wax and
Yeah.
then stuck it all back together to get that because when you moved the camera arm, it
Hmm.
squeaked because they were all metal washers.
I was seeing some guys talk about this fall, for some of the moving parts, like anywhere where like it's a leveling system or anything like that. Like the Muddy Outfitter arm that I have has a leveler, which the one that you have, I don't know. Even
No,
with the
it's
tree bracket, I don't think that it
no.
leveled. I think it was just a strap, basically, and then it, more or less, if you didn't have it on a straight tree, it was going to be pitched one way or the other,
Yeah.
if I recall what it
Yep.
is. But anyway, with the leveling, the threaded rod leveling that some of them have, they were saying to put graphite lube
Oh yeah.
on them, and that works better than like a WD or anything like that. So I was going to try that, because every now and again when I'm trying to level that, it gives a slight squeak, and just, I don't know, you get into your stand all quiet, and then like you do something stupid and you're taking your quiver off or something, and the fletchings knock against your bow limb or whatever, and don't you just like curse yourself?
Yeah.
You just feel like it's all ruined. But in reality, I think you can get away with a little more than we think that we can, if it's just one sound and then it's quiet. I try not to do that, but I don't know. It would be interesting to go and actually take the time to like have a buddy in the woods and see how far away he could be, and still be able to hear you. I bet it would be closer than what we think,
Yeah.
especially if it's like an evening set where it's got a little bit of wind, or some squirrel noise in the leaves or whatever. I bet you can be closer than what you think, and not hear some of that stuff.
Well, yeah, no, I completely agree because, for the work that I do, I'm often out there on ATVs riding around, and people get really grumpy, and I don't blame them to a point that when they see me out there on an ATV during hunting season, they think I'm scaring away all their deer. But
Right.
ATVs, at least, if you've got a decent one and it's quiet, uh, you've got to be pretty close to it to really, really
Yeah.
hear it. Um,
Yeah.
at least if you get beyond like, 50, 60 yards with it, it's pretty quiet. So
Yeah.
even making noise in the woods, I don't, obviously I
Unless
think,
you're like doing the throttle real aggressively or something,
yeah, yeah. I mean, unless you're really hammering on it, but, uh, uh, thinking about making noise up there in the tree or climbing up the tree or something, depending on how quiet it is, you probably get away with a lot more than you think you do.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that.
But I
So,
guess
but
that's, that still doesn't take away from trying to be quiet.
obviously, ideally, you're not making any noise, and then you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I think, especially on like windy days or what have you, or even, if there's a light drizzle, just that sound in the leaves, I think muffles some stuff. So,
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, it's good to be as quiet as possible. Don't get me wrong, but anyway,
Oh,
but
geez,
yeah,
man, I'm looking at the clock here. We've been jabber jawing
yeah.
for a while.
I tell you what, I know it. I got one more thing,
Oh,
one more pro tip for you if you're going out in late season.
okay.
And this isn't original to me. I stole this from somebody, but this was a lifesaver for me in the couple hunts that it was real cold. Check out, you can get them on Amazon. Check out those Thermacare lower back therapy pain therapy wraps.
Hmm.
It's actually like goes around like your like lumbar lower back area, and sort of velcros in front of you. Those will keep you in the stand longer on those cold all day sits, like whether it's the rut or whether it's late season or whatever. It's just amazing what they do,
Oh,
heating up your back. I mean, I know you have Sitka and everything, and you got good gear to be out there in it, but even so, when you're trying to
oh
be
yeah.
as still as possible, you just aren't getting the blood flow.
Oh yeah.
And that's just amazing. You just lean back against the tree and you just get a shot of warm right up your back. It's just so nice.
Hmm.
It gets you spoiled, but that's
Well, I'll double down on that tip that I got years ago. Is that I take they're actually I think they're toe warmers. They've got a bit of a uh, like an adhesive on one side, so I think you can stick them to your socks when you put them in your boots. But
hmm
what I do with them is put them in my front pockets, so that way they're on uh, my arteries and my hip there.
yeah.
So when you
hmm
sit down, basically it's warming those arteries that a lot of your blood flow from your legs to your torso. So it kind of heats them up, and that keeps me warm quite a bit.
Yep. Yep. No, it's kind of similar idea, but
Yeah.
yeah, I heard about that and I was like, man, I got to try that. Mostly I actually got them because I knew that my wife hunting for the first time this year, that she was going to be cold and complaining, and because I just know how that was going to go.
Yeah.
And so I was like, she was having these conversations about whether or not she has to sit all day if she's getting really cold. And so I was like, I'm going to eliminate as many excuses as you have to get out of the stand.
Yep.
So I got these Thermacare wraps kind of for her. And then I wound up trying them too, because I wanted to get her to sit all day if we needed to. And then I wound up trying them too. And I was like, oh my word, I don't know if I can do all day hunts in late November or early December without these now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give that a shot. I wanted to pick up one of those. Buddy of mine's got. I think it's made by Milwaukee, but it's like a heated vest that runs on
Yeah.
a rechargeable battery thing.
Yeah,
And
it's like it almost runs on the same battery as what their tools run on or
yeah,
something.
yep. I
Yeah.
don't know, and they weren't that expensive. I think they were, less than $100 or something. But those look pretty sweet. If I did more late season hunting, I might have to go to something like
Yeah.
that. But
I mean, I try and wear the minimum amount of clothing that I can get by with and everything.
yep,
And I'm not trying to say that I'm going to electric socks or anything like that and have to be, this pampered hunter by any means. But you know how it is if you're standing out there and you're trying to do an all day rut
well,
sit and it's in the 20s or whatever. It's, for whatever reason, when you're uncomfortable, the time goes by so much more slowly.
oh, absolutely. And I mean, Christmas is coming up, so if anybody listening wants to buy anything for Ruben and I, I won't turn it down.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
for
well,
sure.
Ruben, you got any more pearls of wisdom before we
No,
round this thing up?
I think we probably better
Oh
wrap
my
it up.
goodness.
We've been going for a while. If
See,
anybody's even still
I was gonna
listening.
say, see if anybody's still there besides us.
Yeah.
But well, I appreciate you coming on again, man. This year, actually the first time we've ever had anybody twice on the podcast.
Oh, geez.
So that's
Well,
we'll
I
have to
guess
we'll have to make
I
it a
guess
ritual here.
thank you for letting me come back. So I was eager to hear about your season update. So I'm glad that I got to hear that firsthand.
Well, I don't know if I'm eager to relive it every time I've got to talk about it, but it was still a good season, and I'm looking forward to the next. And um,
Hey, maybe
capitalizing.
he's still out there. Next year you'll have your redemption. You never know. There's crazier stories that happen. So
I sure hope so. I mean, that was something I was thinking about going back down there for a late season hunt here now, but I don't know if I'm going to be that brave or that stupid. It might just wait till next year.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, good luck if you get out.
all right,
Let
man.
us
You
know how it
too.
goes.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks,
I
man.
appreciate having you on.
All right.
All
Take
right.
care, Joe.
Talk to you later. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hunting the Empire podcast. This was kind of an extended play, a little bit of a longer one, but there was a lot of stuff to go over. Thanks to Ruben for coming on. Appreciate any time that you want to come on and talk a little hunting with me. Please go on to wherever you get your podcast from, whether that be iTunes, Stitcher, CastBox, Google Play. Leave a review and hit subscribe. Share with your friends. Like it. Lots more episodes to come down the road here. And appreciate all the support. Until next time, take care and God bless.